Hello everyone and welcome to another video in my Swiss Alps How I Did It series, where I lay out the how, why and what of my Swiss Alps trip in the Jungfrau region, so you can consider making life a story worth telling with a similar adventure. In this video, it's about where I chose as a base. To my view, you have 5 options when choosing where to stay in the Jungfrau region. In no particular order, they are Interlarken, Lauterbrunnen, Wengen, Grindelwald and Murren. A few bits of disclosure before I start. I stayed in Wengen and only visited the other places, though I did make an informed choice. I did not regret that choice, so it worked out quite well for me. I also did go in summer, so there may be factors around a winter visit that changes some of this up. Before we get into each place, it's worth considering the layout of the Jungfrau region. The region is largely one of 2 valleys that sit south of Interlarken. This can be quite confusing, as the maps of the region you'll see on the web and around the region itself, unless you look at Google Maps, position the valleys north of Interlarken. But this is a conceit and a convenience just so they can draw the mountain peaks more clearly. This does tend to mean, as well as the choice of those 5 places, you're also choosing 3 different zones. You're choosing whether to stay in Interlarken or in the Lauterbrunnen or Grindelwald Valley. So let's consider the 5 places themselves. First, Interlarken. Initially, I thought going to the Jungfrau region was synonymous with staying in Interlarken. It's like the 2 were intrinsically tied together. This may be because of my route in, via some YouTube videos, which seem tied to Interlarken. It's worth cutting past that and through such videos, checking out some TripAdvisor forums and considering other options, as for sure Interlarken would have been the wrong choice for me. Interlarken essentially means between the lakes, as it sits between Lake Thun and Lake, probably going to pronounce it wrong, Brienz? These lakes are gorgeous, and one of the things I didn't get to do was explore them a bit more, which I do regret. The advantages of Interlarken is it's also its primary disadvantage in that it's the largest, most commercially developed option. So if you want restaurant options and shops and probably a whole host of other stuff commercial development brings, then do stay in Interlarken. If you want easy access to the extreme sports options, to the extent they literally hawk paragliding from vans on the main street, then you want Interlarken. The commercialised areas of Interlarken were not for me though, because it felt like any old commercialised tourist area, and I could have been anywhere. I could have been in Salou or some other location in Spain, as these places follow a similar template. I did eventually find the older parts of the town, and there were some gorgeous sights there, but the main street with all the tourists on and the hotels? No. The other oddity is Interlarken isn't actually in the mountains, or it doesn't feel like it is. You just look at them from a distance, which this can have some weather advantages, but if I'd stayed there, I'd have felt royally cheated. Second, Lauterbrunnen. Lauterbrunnen sits in the Lauterbrunnen Valley, as you would guess. So once you get out to the station, you can see the valley walls. It is a unique look all of its own. It's hard to accept it as a real place a lot of the time. It is positively surreal. It feels like Pandora or some crazy painting off of Lord of the Rings. The valley walls that are so epic at first can also be a bit oppressive though and enclosing over time. It can also even impact the amount of daylight the town gets. I'd also say Lauterbrunnen doesn't look that great as a town. It's okay, but compared to say Wengen and Grindelwald, it loses something, and I'm not convinced it offers much, if at all, over and above say Wengen. One advantage of Lauterbrunnen is its station is the transport hub for the Jungfrau region. So it is the launch point in the mountains to travel up to Murren and Wengen on the Lauterbrunnen side, and also to get to Grindelwald and into the Grindelwald Valley on the Grindelwald Valley side. So it has that small advantage. When it comes to Lauterbrunnen, Wengen and Grindelwald, I'd not worry about being out of position though. So that advantage shouldn't really be the deciding factor of your choice. But it does allow you to avoid the get to Lauterbrunnen first hop of a train journey, or some of the train journeys. Third, Wengen. I was honest up front at the beginning that I'm a bit biased in that I chose Wengen and didn't regret it for a second. Wengen sits on the side of the Lauterbrunnen Valley looking down upon one of the most glorious views on earth, in my humble opinion. The ridiculousness of it is such that you get so used to taking the glorious train rides up to Kleine Scheidegg or down into Lauterbrunnen that you start taking naps on those trains, which is completely insane. But it's just glorious, it really is. I feel with Wengen you get the real Swiss Alps experience. There are no cars in Wengen, so the most likely sound is the bells of cows or goats. It's just amazing. It just feels serene and relaxed. And everywhere you look there is just literally vistas to die for. It's true that you have to travel out of Wengen to do almost anything, which is a disadvantage, but it's so minor and looks so great you don't really care. It's also true Wengen isn't fantastically developed, put to say Interlarken or Grindelwald. But if you want the essential Swiss Alps mountain experience, you want to stay in Wengen. 4. Grindelwald. What surprised me about Grindelwald was how developed it was and how busy. In my mind I was expecting Grindelwald to be the version of Wengen in the Grindelwald Valley, but this wasn't the case. Grindelwald is pretty, but it is substantially busier than Wengen, and it allows cars and also has a very, very busy coach hub. Grindelwald did remind me of one specific place, and that is Banff in the Canadian Rockies. In that it was picturesque, but it obviously was a busy tourist spot. It has more restaurants and stores than Wengen, without putting too much pressure on what it looks like and its visuals as say Interlarken does. Like Banff, this means at times it can get quite busy, making it not as quintessentially serene as Wengen. If you're looking for a compromise between commercial development, a picturesque location, accessibility and a Swiss mountain experience, Grindelwald probably is it. Basically, if you're looking for Banff in the Jungfrau Region. Grindelwald does have the advantage of being at the base of Grindelwald First, which is both a major activity spot in and of itself and also offers access to a lot of hiking routes. For example, I took the train route from Wengen to Grindelwald over the mountain 3 times. That didn't bother me for a second. It was an amazing experience every time. But it does show that there is some advantage to being on the Grindelwald First, depending on what you're doing on your holiday. 5. Murren. Murren is hard for me to comment on as I never got to Murren other than being in the vicinity of it for my paraglide into the Lauterbrunnen Valley. Broadly, it offers the same experience as Wengen in that it is a carless village overlooking the valley, just on the opposite side. The problem is it's not as well positioned as Wengen. It takes a train and a cable car or a bus to effectively exit from it, and it's on the wrong side of the valley for almost everything. If you want a truly remote and quiet experience, I suspect Murren is it. As I understand it, is even less commercially developed than Wengen. And as I say, you can't fully be out of position in the Jungfrau region to the point that it ruins your trip, but Murren is the one that is the most out of all the options discussed so far. Apart from Interlarken, which isn't in the mountains at all. You remember that. So as I clearly stated, my favourite option is Wengen. I admitted my bias. It just felt like being in the mountains and it was easy to escape the tourist hordes. If I was forced to choose a second option, it would be Grindelwald, as while it can get quite busy, it does have those Banff-like advantages of commercial development without sacrificing its looks too much, and sits next to a lot of great hiking. I'd also add at this point that I believe the Lauterbrunnen Valley is quieter in my experience, while the Grindelwald Valley is a bit more tourist heavy. As I've said, one thing I wouldn't worry about overly is getting it wrong in terms of position or feeling the need to stay in multiple locations. The train transport around the region is amazing, beautiful, convenient, and just makes everything easy, especially if you get the early trains. If you've been to the Jungfrau region and have your own view on where the best place is for your adventures, or if you have a question, don't hesitate to comment below. Beyond that, consider liking this video, certainly hit subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and until then, let's make life a story worth telling.